Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of the Motor City Pickoff alongside Jason Ross Jr. I'm Genna Rose. It's going to be a rubber match here today at Comerica Park as the Tigers prepare to wrap up a 3-game homestand against the Toronto Blue Jays. There will be plenty of elements we'll be breaking down in today's show, but one of the exciting things about today's starting pitchers is that lefty Matthew Boyd makes his way back to the mound.
First time since June 14th that Tigers fans are getting to see Matthew Boyd, and they're more than happy to have him back here at Comerica Park. As Genna mentioned, there is plenty coming up on today's show. In addition to that, we'll talk about a discussion on the state of the Tigers organization, in addition to comparing the Tigers rebuild to the Blue Jays rebuild over the past couple of years. We'll also dive into what's taking place down in AAA Toledo, so really should be a fun show today.
Yes, it will be. We have a lot to get to, so let's kick things off by breaking down today's starting arms. For the Toronto Blue Jays, right-hander Jose Barrios takes the mound, and for the Tigers, the highly anticipated return of left-hander Matthew Boyd, who's trading in that Toledo Mud Hens jersey for the Old English team.
With 33 games left, the Tigers' opening day starter is finally back on the bump here in Detroit. As Genna mentioned, there were a few AAA rehab starts down in Toledo, the latter of which saw Boyd retire the final 13 batters that he faced. Have to point out here, he looks really good in that Mud Hens uniform. So does catcher Eric Haas, who said that Boyd's increased usage of the changeup played a key role in his success in that final start down in Toledo. And when you harken back to April, first month of the season, the changeup played a key role in one of the better months of Matthew Boyd's career overall. Paired with the fastball, he's throwing the changeup more so than the slider this year. Toledo Mud Hens manager Tom Prince said that his fastball velocity was hanging around the 93-mile-per-hour range during that final start in Toledo. So we'll see if he can replicate that success today against a very potent Blue Jays lineup. The pitcher for the Jays will be Jose Barrios.
Yep, the right-hander Jose Barrios takes the mound for the Blue Jays. Barrios' most recent outing came against the Chicago White Sox, where through 3 innings of work, he struck out 6 and allowed 9 hits and 4 earned runs. When we dissect that outing for Barrios, he's very comfortable throwing the curveball and sinker for first pitch strikes. Diving into Barrios' arsenal, he's very comfortable with that curveball. Opposing batters are only hitting 214 off of it. He'll also incorporate his four-seam fastball and his changeup. That four-seamer really adds a breath of fresh air to Barrios' arsenal, given that his changeup and sinker tend to live down in the zone. Now, when we look at him, he is someone who really has a high strikeout percentage. He does induce plenty of ground balls, but along with that, right now he has more strikeouts than innings pitched. So it's going to be key for the Tigers as they step into the box that they stay ahead in the count and they attack aggressively.
Should be a fun pitching matchup. We mentioned AAA Toledo. We'll talk about that next on the Motor City Pickoff. The Tigers' #1 overall prospect, Spencer Torkelson, and #2 overall prospect, Riley Greene, have ascended to AAA Toledo quicker than most thought they would. And to begin this discussion with Spencer Torkelson, he's already made a bit of a statement down in AAA with his first homer.
Yes, that home run came off of St. Paul's lefty reliever Giovanni Moran, who's susceptible to falling behind in counts due to average command of his fastball and slider. You can see here going up against Torkelson, it's a 2-0 count. Giovanni was able to work his way back in with some breaking stuff, but he just left one a little too sweet over the plate for Torkelson to take advantage of. You can see here that he keeps his barrel inside his hands as it moves through the zone and accelerates the barrel to the ball, driving it over 320 feet above the left field wall. Now, if Torkelson is able to channel that groove that he had when he was down in Erie, 7 for 7 with 3 home runs, we're going to see an absolute splash at the AAA level. And hey, Torkelson is a part of that power duo in Riley Greene, who just the inning before during that game had the 2-run single to give the Toledo Mud Hens the lead.
Yeah, they're like 2 peas in the pod right now. Greene and Torkelson are roommates down in AAA Toledo, so helping one another on and off the field. When you delve into Greene's success thus far, 11 hits in his first 11 AAA games, in addition to 9 driven in. At 20 years of age, still 1 month shy of his 21st birthday. Greene is one of the youngest players in AAA East. He and Torkelson are hopefully the dynamic duo to come in Detroit for years to come. More coming up next on the Motor City Pickoff.
When asked about attracting free agents during the offseason, Tigers manager A.J. Hinch said that if the Tigers organization does a good job, we're going to reestablish ourselves as a winning franchise and develop a winning culture. If you want to be a part of it, then come, and if you don't, we're going to beat you, which AJ summed it up pretty good right there.
I thought that was the quote of the week from AJ Hinch. I absolutely loved it, and I think it's a fitting discussion to have, given that earlier we chatted about Matthew Boyd's early season success. During that time in April, he had very little run support. Tigers got off to that 8-19 start. At the time, AJ Hinch was often saying, you know, we're better than what we're showing right now, and the Tigers went on to prove that in May, June, July, and now August, where they are on pace to have an above 500 record in all of those months. The only other teams in the majors that can say that are the Dodgers, the Giants, the White Sox, and the Blue Jays. So at the moment, hoping to close this month out on a high note, but you see even in last night's 3-2 loss in extra innings, Tigers fought their way back to tie the game. It's kind of the culture and just the, I guess, the stick-to-itiveness that you're seeing within this young group that is fun to watch down the stretch here. And speaking of the future, Jen, there could be a lot on the table in the offseason as well for the Tigers.
It's a fun conversation for fans to have, especially with the depth at the shortstop position for this free agent class. And one of the number one names thrown around in that conversation is Houston Astros shortstop Carlos Correa. He is a Gold Glove caliber type of shortstop. He was a finalist in the year of 2020 and will most likely be in that conversation again this year. Right now, he leads all of baseball with his defensive runs saved and ranks with the best of them when it comes to outs above average. And offensively, he's been in a bit of a slump, but he's starting to come out of it, currently hitting .274, high on base percentage, high slugging percentage. So he's someone who can back up what he does defensively. Offensively, when he starts to get into a rhythm, other names that are thrown into that conversation are Trevor Story and Corey Seager. However, both of them are prone to injury. We saw them both on the IL during the month of May. And another popular one is Javi Baez. Stellar at the shortstop position, but offensively right now, when he makes his way up to the plate, 1 out of every 3 at-bats, he's likely to strike out. So, again, all of these are high-caliber shortstops. It just comes down to who can produce offensively, defensively, and if the Tigers are able to put in the funds for it.
Certainly should be an interesting offseason. And to stay on this note of the Tigers' rebuild and culture, these are two fun teams to compare over the past couple of years in the Blue Jays and Tigers today, because we watched the Blue Jays rebuild ascend to being in contention for potentially a wild card spot at the end of this season. And when you examine their rebuild going back a few years, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, Kevin Biggio, all came up with one another. You add Lourdes Gurriel into the mix as well, who reached the majors a tad earlier than those three. But all friends, just like you think of Spencer Torkelson and Riley Greene, we talked about today in our AAA segment. And now the Blue Jays have one of the hardest hitting lineups in the major leagues, as the narrative in the Tigers rebuild shifts from good pitching in the farm system to good bats in the farm system. We hope that they can potentially replicate that success here in Detroit. So definitely two fun comparisons going on right now.
Oh, it's certainly going to be a fun matchup here tonight. A rubber match, Tigers versus the Toronto Blue Jays. You are not going to want to miss it. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of the Motor City Pickoff. For Jason Ross Jr., I'm Genna Rose. We'll see you next time.